Good evening to anyone who may tune into this. This will be a timeless message, although the urge to give it has gotten stronger and stronger over the last few weeks. We are approaching October 30th, 31st, to be exact, of 2021, which will lead us into 2022 and the energy that we can expect. I have been talking on several videos about couples and communication, the skills that we were guided to learn in 2019, 2020, 2021. And I don't want to call out other people who are attempting to teach, because we can glean information from all sorts of sources. So this isn't about the messenger that, or any number of them that have inspired me to speak about this, but more about a word of wisdom that I have been pulling down, or has been being downloaded into me or channeled, however you want to put it, for weeks now. Well, much longer than that. I mean, as long as I've been dating or married, and that is that each person is individual. And it concerns me. We're seeing a lot of really amazing, wonderful, great self-help videos on YouTube, which is extremely beneficial, and we should be thanking all of these, whether you want to call them, some of them are gurus, mystics, channelers, however you want to put it, that give amazing insights. And some professional licensed doctors, psychologists, that are putting out some great information out there. I do want to give the word of wisdom, though, which is that the same thing I say to people who come to me for a reading. I do life coaching. And people are guided to me for a reason. For just like you pick a psychologist, you click with somebody, right? But nobody on the other end of a camera, and I'm excluding, and I'm not talking about if you're doing a Skype or a Zoom, right? And you can communicate through telephone, you can communicate through text. I'm talking about one individual giving a mass bit of information to the masses, to a great number of people. That information is usually generalized. And I just want to make sure that we're keeping that in mind as we watch these things. I was extremely troubled by a video. I could only watch half of it before I just had to do this, because I've seen too many of them. Too many things out there about narcissists. I was actually watching one. There's a gentleman. I really like his insights. Not that I believe I necessarily have a narcissist in my life, but as someone interested in psychology, his insights are extremely interesting and valuable. I have dealt with people who have displayed what you would call narcissistic tendencies. But there was another person that was doing an interview with a psychologist, and I think that psychologist explained it very well. You can have somebody who has narcissistic tendencies but isn't a narcissist. Those tendencies from narcissism come from trauma, and you can have trauma without having all of the qualifications to be a narcissist, right? Well, along with these videos on narcissism, and I'm being guided to finish, and I did ask the angels to come into this, because although this is like a huge passion for me, because I've seen couples tear up their relationship based on misinformation like this, or mass information that then gets, in my opinion, misapplied. So what I had started to say was this: that there's a self-proclaimed narcissist. Well, I shouldn't say self-proclaimed. He was diagnosed by a psychologist, according to his story, as a narcissist, and he's had his wife come on and confirm. Um, and he's very honest about some of his feelings. But when I watch him, there was especially one particular video that I watched that I literally cried. The love I felt towards this man was so profound, and not in a, like, he's married and his wife seems to be a lovely woman, and my heart is 100% still taken, despite, you know, if you're watching this channel, you probably understand I do videos for the astrological, but I also do the twin flame videos. I have ever since I apparently jumped onto this roller coaster called Twin Flame Journeys. But I've been talking to people for a long time about relationships, long before I knew what twin flames were. And so I'm not talking about that kind of love. I'm talking about the love of a healer. And my heart was just touched, and I could literally feel my heart just go out to this man, because he was making such self-depreciating comments as he's explaining his narcissism. I'm trying to think exactly what he said, and one of his viewers had asked him if doing these videos had hurt him, because he was out there putting it all out there that he was a narcissist. And he jokingly laughed that it was lucky that he worked for himself, because that made it okay that his boss hated him, because he was his boss. And he was talking about hating himself. And I wanted to cry. I have been in relationships with damaged people. And maybe one of the burdens, but also one of the benefits of being what I am, it's a burden in that I can never just rant and rave and say, oh, that person's such a, you know, a name call and be mean. And I can have my friends sit there and say, well, they're doing this X, Y, and Z. But especially if my angels get involved and they show me the deeper sides of things, then I'm also privy to information that they've told me that I can't express to my friends or to anyone else, that explains why they're in the pain that they're in, and why they do what they do. And it makes me sad for them if they don't choose to heal. I can't continue to walk beside them if they're going to continue to do stuff that's damaging to me. But I would never say that I hate them. And it would always break my heart if I heard somebody I cared about say they hate themselves. Not to say that I, you know, when I've made mistakes or been acting from the shadow side, haven't felt that way too for a second, but we're not talking about a second. We all beat up on ourselves that we shouldn't, but it happens. But this is something deeper. And my concern is that when we're throwing around words like narcissist, they hurt. That's a diagnosis, an actual diagnosis that needs to be done by a doctor. And it holds true for a lot of other things. And then we get into the symptoms of it, which people talk about gaslighting. Well, you can gaslight and not be a narcissist. I'm sure that I've done it on occasion, not intentionally, and certainly not meaning any harm or malice, but when humans get into a defensive mode, there's a portion, and this isn't like when they talk about the stages of gaslighting in a relationship where that is volatile. This is different. And there are, you can go through stages where they, I would call it an indoctrination. They kind of work you up to it. I've had it happen to me. They kind of work you up to it. And so by time you're into the main parts of gaslighting, that the really harsh parts, the worst parts, you're too far in. You don't even realize it's happening to you. What I'm talking about when I say an accident, when I do it, it's so infrequent, and it's going to be something where the person on the other end is like, uh, no, Mom, that's not how it happened, or no, Becky, that's not how it happened. And I have to stop and think, okay, is there something I'm missing? Did I see something wrong? And that's normal and healthy. We all get defensive if we come at, somebody comes at us. We can sometimes come at somebody else when we're very angry. Nobody's perfect. But there's a lot of videos that are giving these stages of gaslighting, and I think it's important information. I don't think they should take them down. As I said, having been in it, I do think that there are warning signs that people should watch for. And it does go in stages. It can go very slowly, and then all of a sudden you're in the thick of it, and you don't trust yourself anymore. You don't know what's true or not anymore. You don't trust your own mind, your instincts, your judgment, because the other person is constantly saying, oh, you didn't remember that correctly. Oh, you're completely wrong. That didn't happen that way. And they will tell you that on things they weren't even there for. That they have there's no way that they could be the one that's accurate because they weren't involved in the conversation. They were not there. But when they're in the defending other people over you mode, and you are it turns into like this whole scapegoat thing. And when you get into that scapegoat side, by the time you're there, you don't trust yourself at all. And that's a really bad place to be. So I do think this information is important. It's important that it's out there. But having said that, I want to say, and I've been wanting to say this because I see a lot of comments I watch other readers besides myself, and I keep saying I'm going to link the links below, and I keep forgetting. I mean, I think one is called Goddess Tarot, and I think another one is it's JS or JD something. His first name is John. Shout out to them, and to, I believe her name is Candace, Queen Cup Tarot. I adore her. So there's some amazing readers. There's just a list of them that I really like. Her motto is just keep swimming, but I can't think of her full title right now. Again, as I said before, that's part of the problem with giving the shout outs, because I get into my channeling, and then like I can see pictures of their video, but I don't necessarily hone in on the name without losing track of where I'm at. So I will at some point soon try to get a link, maybe a shout out list on my channel. I'll try to do it. Actually, that's a good way. I think I can link a playlist, and so I'll just like do 1 or 2 videos from each person that I really like, and then you can see the people I watch. But anyway, and this is the problem, is I digress. So my point is that I've been looking at a lot of these comments that are on there, and I will admit I don't necessarily, mostly just because I haven't set it up. I originally started this, I started watching YouTube, not started this channel, but I started watching YouTube just under my other name, which is Rebecca Young, and I have tons and tons of people I watch in all different topics and researching constantly. And I think the only videos posted there are 2 that me and my kids made on some game. And then I wanted a separate one for this, mostly just so I could keep track of my playlist. And so, so that video is, or that page is separate. And then I have a separate one for my, my budding company that I'm hoping to get off the ground with my partner, and that's just going to be fun to play with art and create things that we like to create, and that's Best Earth. But Here with Angels, I just haven't taken the time to get that together, so I will put together a playlist of everybody and take a look in the comments, and you'll see what I'm talking about. There are a lot of supportive masculines and feminines, a lot of supportive people that are cheering their counterparts on, even when they're not in union, wishing them the best, hoping for the best for them. But I also see a lot of words thrown out like narcissist, and very damaging, detrimental comments. And I get if somebody has hurt you, it's really hard sometimes to be positive and to and I'm sorry, I'm struggling to find the right words, but to be as supportive as you might want to be through the pain. But I think we have to be careful of this stuff for two reasons. One, and I'll give this as a two-part. If you're already in a couple situation and you think that the other party is kind of gaslighting or kind of has some narcissistic tendencies, they've not been diagnosed as a narcissist, but you're seeing some worrying signs or other any issues, then I said this in one of the other videos, outside third party help is the best. Watching the videos is great for drawing your attention to communication skills. Maybe what kind of therapist you're going to want to look for. Are you just looking, is any counselor going to be okay? Or if they have symptoms, and this is not up for the person who's not doing it, this is the person who's in the throes of this. For instance, if you have a partner who's displaying signs of OCD, it's not your job to diagnose that. It's their job to, if it's something that bothers them, to seek treatment and help and be diagnosed. So if they have issues with bipolar disorder, there are people that deal with that with and without meds. There are, a whole host of mental health issues that are a chemical nature and would require a psychiatrist who can prescribe things if that's the route they want to take. There are also a whole host of symptoms that are caused by a whole plethora of traumas from childhood on that require different ways of treating it. And it's going to be important for the person struggling with it the most, who's in the trigger trauma, having the triggers from the trauma, and doing something. You may be the one to notice because they're doing it to you, but if they're the ones expressing it in that way, it's an expression of their pain. So they need to be the ones that are comfortable first with a therapist and a counselor in seeking help. If they won't, and you need to gain some coping skills or to make a decision, then you can seek help without them. And that is a healthy method to do as well. I also want to express that, like, as I said, there are some amazing videos being put out, many of them being put out now, especially with the COVID stuff. And I really appreciated all of these psychologists that are and counselors that are putting out information for free to people who need it very, very much. I just hope that everybody also realizes that it is really, really hard to diagnose somebody, even if you think you know them really well, especially if you're their partner, because there may be parts about their childhood or their trauma that they've never told you, that they won't ever tell you, because it's too embarrassing, it's too hard. And it may take them 5 counselors or psychologists to find one that they trust enough to tell then. So it is the mind is so complicated. But getting around these type of things, one of the most loving things that we can do for one another, in my opinion, based on what I've been taught by Heavenly Father and angels, is to understand that when people do this, most people don't set out wanting to hurt somebody. It's usually a symptom of something else. And that takes me back to this gentleman who was who does his videos on narcissism and the fact that he hates himself so much. And I so wanted to just grab him and hug him and say to you, understand that although, yes, this is making your life difficult because you really do love your wife. And it's hard as one of the diagnostic symptoms of being a narcissist is that rather than just striking out to hurt somebody because someone's being mean or they're in pain for the moment or reactive, is that they truly have trouble connecting to their own human emotions. But that is a symptom in and of itself of the trauma that they've gone through. And he talks about himself as if he is a narcissist. In other words, he was born this way, his DNA is this way, he will never change. But I don't believe that. I've never believed that. When we're talking about something that's trauma, not DNA, trauma can be healed. And the fact that he's in therapy and the fact that he loves his wife and his kids enough to seek therapy and to become a better man for them and for himself, that alone speaks volumes about how much he loves her and his children and his character. And he may not be able to fully be in touch with those emotions, but they're clearly there. So my point is that there are things that some of us will never understand about other people. And I hope that we can be kind to one another, especially our counterparts. And I keep mentioning it because it's important, and I'll be mentioning it again next year in October, around October 31st, when the news cycle happens again, because it's a cycle each year. And then I don't know what it's going to be and what 2023 is going to be. They're taking me 1 year at a time, so I have no idea yet. But for now, I do know that the emphasis has been very heavy on communication and on couples communications. So let's be kind to one another. And if you need a little selfish incentive, learning to be understanding of other people's pain and to be kind benefits you too. If you're on this twin flame journey, or you're just here watching because you saw one of my couples videos, or you find this at some later date and you're going through some issue in either trying to find the right partner or trying to understand your partner, understand that the more you give unconditional love, and that doesn't mean turning the other cheek if they're being mean. That does not in any way mean lowering your boundaries, putting up with garbage. It just means that after you set your boundaries and after you say, okay, this isn't how I want to be talked to, instead of getting revenge, instead of getting back, instead of punishing, instead of getting mad, try to understand that it comes from somewhere. And hopefully, if they want to work on the relationship, they'll want to know where it comes from too, so that they can work on things. And try to also understand that usually we're with people who mirror us. And so if we're noticing that in them, we've probably struggled with something like that ourselves at one point or another, to some degree or another. One of the other things, and I'm going to go back to the video that I got stuck on halfway, when they were talking about the stages, and I know I'm at 23 minutes, I meant to make this like 10 minutes, but when they were talking about the stages that are in gaslighting, and most of them I recognized. I was like, oh, yep, okay, that one she should have seen. Warning sign right out the door. First date, and he's like, oh, well, you were late. Oh, but it's okay. But it just means the food's cold, but it's okay. I'm sorry. And we'll put gaslighting aside. If it's a first date with somebody and they are not doing their best to impress, and that goes for both sides. Yes, people run late, stuff happens. But if they're already saying, like, oh, but it's going to be cold. Oh, but you're late. It doesn't mean walk away. It doesn't mean, like, run for the hills. But that is is this going to be one of those things? And maybe if you're like that too, and I talked about how couples, if you're vibing together, sometimes you can have those set in stone things and it won't matter. If you're both like absolute, you have to be punctual and that was some random thing that never happened before, and so you can understand perfectly why they, like the punctuality. Okay, that's a good sign. If, however, you're the kind of person who has a crazy schedule and you're often interrupted and you pretty much have to go wherever God puts you, and life is just out there sometimes, and 5 and 10 minutes late is, well, that's late on your schedule, that wasn't late on God's, which could sometimes happen to you if you were once upon a time the anal retentive person who never wanted to be late and never liked it when anyone was late. Um, then that might not be the person to go on the second date with. Okay? So I'm just saying that those are some of the things in the video. Like, I was watching that and I'm going, okay, well, that was flag one right there. She's laid back. He's kind of already a little anal. So I could see some friction happening, just whether there's gaslighting or not. When they got further into the relationship, though, and this is what caused me the trigger, and I'm going to watch the rest of the video, to be fair, but this is what caused my trigger. They got into this, and this is why I think outside third-party stuff, if there's a communication issue, is so important. Because it's so individual to each person or each couple. They were in the skit, because this was a docu-skit, right? And so in this little short documentary, the scene was that she was explaining to her friend, again, something I've advised against, but she was explaining to her friend about how it was mostly good. She was happy, but she was just concerned because they had an argument. Okay? The argument being that a watch had been broken. He assumed that she did it, and this is according to the conversation. What she said was that he got mad at her because the watch got broken, and then he didn't speak to her for 2 hours. Then she goes on to tell her friend that maybe she shouldn't have denied it so adamantly. She didn't think she had broken it, but maybe she did drop it or break it in some way when she was cleaning. I'm going to say two things. One, this woman in the skit also has a very busy life. Could she have broken it while cleaning? It's possible. Things happen. Should he get super, super mad? Not really. But what do you define as super mad? She didn't describe in the skit any name calling. She didn't describe him getting super pissed and slamming things or throwing things or doing anything that I would consider violent or dangerous. She simply said he didn't talk to her for 2 hours. So now we're going to go into something personal and something very, individual to couples. Not so long ago, I was in a relationship where the gentleman would get pissed and not talk for a couple of hours. It didn't bother me at all. And do you want to know why? Because if I get mad, I won't talk for a couple of hours. But it wasn't about punishing for either of us. We communicated about it early on. He wasn't used to anyone else that did it. So we talked about it. And we came up with a plan. Like, we would say, okay, I just need a little bit. And that was our cue. The other one left it alone. Because 9 times out of 10, we were angry that something had happened. Whether it was something getting broken or something not getting done, we were angry about the extenuating circumstances, not between each other, not as people, but about what happened outside of that. Okay, I don't want to give any exact examples. and on purpose. I feel very protective of this person, so I'm not gonna out this person in any way. But for instance, let's say that he had done something or said he was going to do something and didn't. When I came home, I might have been tired, grumpy because I couldn't do what I needed to do because he didn't do what he needed to do. So now I'm going to be even further behind schedule and more tired. But I wasn't angry at him per se. Yes, his actions were the catalyst, but I was angry because X, Y, and Z wasn't done and because of my schedule. So I always liked to go for that little hour, 2 hour period and spend some time by myself and ask myself, do I need to be mad at him? Did he do anything wrong? Is there a reason that this happened? Am I overreacting because I also had a rough day at work? Are there extenuating circumstances? How much of this emotion is a buildup of all of the things in my life and this is just a trigger and I'm spilling it over? I wanted it to be accurate and appropriate because I also recognized that he has triggers of his own. And he did the same. So when he spent 2 hours being quiet, he didn't come out explosive. He didn't come out yelling and screaming at me. He came out calmer. He came out after having thought it through, more able to communicate with me, more able to figure out whatever it was that was the issue so that it could be fixed. It was a benefit to both of us. That's not going to be true in every single relationship. It just happened to be that we happened to click that way, that we both happened to benefit from that. So whereas if somebody had randomly just said, if he or I had randomly told somebody else, oh, well, she's mad, she's off for 2 hours. Or he's mad, he's going to be sitting there for a little while. Somebody else might have said any number of things that were not supportive. And again, they might have felt like they were being supportive, as this woman in the video did when she was telling her friend, oh, well, that sounds like he was overreacting. But what is overreacting? And so, anyway, the point is, and that really triggered me I've been feeling like saying something for a little bit. And it really triggered me to just remind everybody, every relationship that you're going to have is going to be as unique, as beautifully unique as you yourself are, and as your partner is. So the secret, and the faster we learn this, the faster we get to, have that, that beautiful relationship we're hoping for, where communication is wonderful, and we can talk for hours and lose track of time, and the world slips away, and we have, a best friend who we trust, and, all of the good parts of it. So, because we're coming up on the end of this cycle, we still have a little bit of time to learn this stuff. So if you've been out there and you've been throwing around words like narcissist, understand that, one, if you keep doing that, the universe may very well bring you a real narcissist. And then you'll learn what the difference is the hard way. And you don't want that. Trust me, you don't want that. And two, if you're sending that energy, which is what you're doing, if you're saying that your ex was, and he hasn't been diagnosed as that, you're bringing more of that energy towards him. One, that's going to do two things. One, until you learn to see him as an individual, as a divine person of God, whether you're a twin flame or not, we're all divine children of God. Hands down, no question. If you believe in any kind of theity, in any kind of higher consciousness, to this quantum matrix that we're in, if you believe at all that he had a hand in creating and guiding us, then we're all equally children. And if that's the case, then it stands to reason why he does things, by he I mean God, like when you've griped and complained about his other kid, send you another kid that's the same way. Whereas if you send that person love and understanding and compassion and wish them the best and pray for them, then he sends you someone that is also equally better energetically. So, and that gets into a whole lot of quantum physics stuff, and we don't have time for that here because I've got other videos to put out. But I hope this is helpful, and I am not in any way discouraging you guys from seeking help, looking things up online. I have found some of the stuff I have found online immensely beneficial for my own shadow work, my own healing, and for understanding other people. But just take it with a grain of salt. Remember, we're all individuals, and you've got to be careful about calling people narcissist, and you've got to be careful about lumping every little quirk or idiosyncrasy into, a gaslighting profile or a narcissistic profile or anything else. The humans are way too complicated for that. Thank you, God, because it would be boring if we were not. Anyway, have a blessed evening. From my soul to yours, I love you.